Hello. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Connor,
And my name is Shane.
and we are here at our Tower City Media office, where we'll be doing a kind of general, very long and detailed discussion on The Outsider HBO show.
Yeah, just a little insight for everyone. I jumped onto The Outsider back when the first episode came out. I actually didn't have any knowledge of it at all until I got done watching the first episode and, kind of looked it up after the fact and found out that it was a Stephen King project based off of one of his books. I believe it was a more recent book, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was. I do not know what year, but
Yeah.
I actually got the book just kind of separately for a pretty good deal, and I just had it like sitting on my shelf, and then I saw like the trailer for The Outside, and I was like, cool, now I have a reason to actually read it ahead of time.
Yeah,
And
and with me just jumping on with episode one, just because it looked interesting, I never had a chance to really read the book before, and I mean, watching as much stuff as I do, I don't know if I'll have a chance to read it after, but that's why I'm kind of glad you had a chance to read it, so we've got that perspective of differences between the book and the show.
yeah, and the book is, I would say it's like normal person long, like it's 560 pages.
That's not too bad.
No, it's not the longest book of his I've read. I read Sleeping Beauties, which is came out earlier but is also pretty recent.
Or it isn't it like his longest one?
No, The Stand is, but it is very long. It is about like 11 or 1200 pages.
I believe it or not, I actually have the audiobook of it, and I think I've been or gone through about 50% of it, close to 50% of it, but I just haven't had time or place really to continue listening to it, but I intend on getting through all of it.
Yeah, I heard the one thing about the It book that's difficult is the kid with the stuttering problem.
Oh yeah.
Cause in reading it, right, that's pretty easy. You get the point just looking at it
Hmm.
and not hearing them repeat. But now we're just talking about Stephen King stuff.
Well, it's always good to have a little bit of background on it. But anyway,
Yeah.
so going into The Outsider.
Yeah. So in the first episode, I'll just jump right into the show bit. We open with like the discovery of this boy, Frankie Peterson's body, right? Then we
Yeah, and,
follow.
it's in like so like I said, a little bit of background. I didn't know it was a Stephen King project before. So
Yeah.
as soon as, but I knew it was I mean, it was obviously HBO because that's where I went to see it. But as soon as they showed his body, I was like, "Oh wow, this is pretty graphic."
They don't even show which, you know, the book, it's not a book, so it doesn't literally show it either, but like the most gruesome part of that,
Hmm.
which I don't want to say, but it's pretty
Okay.
the sodomizing of, it's gross.
Uh, I guess since it was a kid, because I know I've seen gruesome things on TV before, but since it was a kid and that was like one of the first things you see when watching the episode, I was like, "Oh crap, wow, okay, it's gonna be that kind of show."
uh we then it then follows actually the first part of the book pretty well with some added details. We get flashbacks to Detective Anderson as he builds a case, talking to witnesses who have seen this person, and this introduces us to Terry Maitland as he spends time with his family, like before he has a big baseball game, and he's a like a little league teacher, a little league coach, and then a English teacher.
And if you are watching the show or plan on watching the show and you haven't read the book, Terry's played by Jason Bateman, and Ralph is
Yes.
played by Ben Mendelsohn, which was a big draw for me on going into that show because I love both of those guys.
Yeah, I love them too. Who was the second guy you said?
Ben Mendelsohn,
Yeah, it was. I was actually super surprised because I'm used to him in his whiny bad guy role.
director Krennic.
Yes, and what's his name from Ready Player One?
Oh, Sorrento.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
was
how
so
I just remember that one.
no, but him. I was like, wow, he's actually playing. the good guy, which is weird. Terry gets arrested and brought in for questioning. We get his visit with the lawyer and the police showing up at Terry's home. Then Terry goes to jail. The mother of Frankie, the boy who was killed, dies of a heart attack. And we get conflicting evidence that there are prints that show that Terry was in town and killed the boy, but a video of Terry out of town during the time the boy was killed.
Does that wrap up episode 1?
The final thing I put in here is that Terry is harassed by the other inmates because he is arrested for, brutally killing a child.
Which has always been a very intriguing thing to me for prisoners. Like, you can have someone that's in there for, killing 10 people or doing something extreme like that. But if they see someone come in that has done anything to a child, they still have standards somehow.
It's that honor among thieves thing, right?
Yeah.
So
I've just always found that fascinating.
So there are some changes in this. I will say just like the opening of the book is a little different, where the opening it shows like these 2 or 3 kids skateboarding, and then they see a cop car and like, oh my god, that's the cops. And inside the cop car is Ralph and the 2 cops with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it jumps back to doing not like what the show does, where it's just a conversation, but like a log conversation, like the transcript of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't actually get to see what they look like. So there's that. But the biggest change, I will say, is that the book takes place in Oklahoma.
And not, what is it? It takes place in Georgia, right? In the show? Yeah.
Yeah. Both of them are fictional cities, but it makes the train to Dallas thing make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
The book is set at summertime, so no one's in school when any of this happens, and so later when we get a bunch of stuff with Terry's wife and kids at school, none of that's in the book.
Probably in the show, just add more.
Yeah, which
effect to how everything's affecting them. I mean,
yeah,
I can see
why. There's one big change in here that I think you'll be surprised with. Before we get to that, we get more detail about Terry in the show than in the book. We get like nothing about him in the book, him with his family or anything.
Well, he's Jason Bateman. What more do you need? He couldn't have done it.
I mean, that's very true. The outsider is showing up and haunting the Maitland house and Terry's daughter. We don't get that until much later. Mrs. Peterson is obese in the book, so she doesn't just freak out and then has a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
She's, obese, so it makes a little more sense, right? Because you don't have a great heart when you do that stuff.
Well, yeah.
And then it sets up the can't/must tattoos a lot earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest thing that will shock you. So in the show and book, Ralph and his wife have a son, Derek, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who was
had.
Well, there's the difference. In the book, he's not dead.
Oh, what?
So in the show, he's dead. In the book, it's at summertime. He is away at camp the entire book.
Okay. I'm going to have to see how that whole thing plays out through the rest of our discussion in here and compare the two once we get to the end, I guess.
So, yeah, it's weird. I would just say he's functionally gone in the book, right? Because him not being there is the only time he's ever mentioned is that it's Janine saying, I talked to Derek. He's not coming home, even though his literally coach is in jail, and you are, investigating him or later stuff that happens.
Which
he's not coming home. I'm told him to stay at camp, and that's the most we ever get about him.
See, that's surprising because he plays a pretty significant role in the show. I mean, not a role, but like he's his death is a very impacting part of who Terry and his wife, or not Terry, Ralph and his wife are.
Yeah, I had to make that because I took uh plot notes, and I think I did that a couple of times when I was typing. I'd put the wrong name.
Hmm.
It's weird. So episode 2 opens with Ralph meeting Terry
Well,
in the prison. Okay,
bef-
yeah,
before we get to episode 2, I just wanted to go through with some of my
yeah,
general thoughts on episode 1. So
yeah.
I don't know if maybe it's because I went into just the show and I hadn't read the book before like you did, so you tell me if it made more sense to you, but the first, I don't know, 15 20 minutes of the show, it seemed like the whole jumping back and forth between time of things happening kind of threw me off at first until I realized what exactly was leading into what, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. In the book, it's more delineated between here is a section of like regular prose writing as they go and arrest him and stuff.
I gotcha.
And in the book, so it's like in the book, you then get it's kind of like so the way Stephen King writes his books is that he has big like section headings and then individual like chapters, quote unquote,
Hmm.
where they're like one, then it could be like pages or a paragraph, then it'll be like chapter two.
Hmm.
So every break was like flipping between those, so it made it very easy.
I gotcha.
And there was some like there's some good detail where we see a note from either the coroner or somebody where he's what she goes into kind of what happened and then adds like because one of the big conflicts in this like beginning is grabbing Terry at the baseball game that he's coaching.
Hmm.
And in the book, it makes a little more sense because we get this guy's dangerous. This is really bad. This is like a sick guy. Like these additional notes from professionals who see this thing are like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So it makes a little more sense. And in the book, the DA is also part of the reason why the DA says that they should grab him like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
that
mean, all
Ralph,
that I got. I was just
yeah.
at first it was a little hard trying to place where things were happening and how they were like placed as far as time goes because they were doing a
Uh,
lot of jumping back and forth in the very beginning.
yeah, I think it makes for so something you'll find out as we go through this. The book is paced very strangely, I'll say.
Mm.
And so I think they do it, at least in the book, and the show helps too, of kind of keeping an interesting moment to moment, and you can see what it's going to, right? It's
Yeah.
non-linear storytelling in that way.
Yeah.
So, ready for episode 2 or any more
Uh,
notes?
yeah. Two more things. One, did you in the beginning before you saw the contradictory evidence?
Yeah.
Did you feel like Terry was probably the one that did it, whether it be in the book or in the show?
Uh, I don't think so. Mostly because like I read the back of the book and it says that,
Oh
there's
wow, yeah.
it's one of those things where, like when I reviewed Bloodshot earlier, like
Hmm.
I'll just not put any date to it, but it's like the trailer gives away what the big twist is in that movie.
Hmm.
So watching the movie, you're kind of like, yeah, I know this. Get to the fun stuff.
Because I guess
So
it was a little bit different for me since I didn't have anything,
yeah.
going into
Oh yeah,
it.
that's true.
But I saw Terry being played by Jason Bateman, and seeing him like that, I'm like, oh no, it can't be Jason Bateman. He didn't
That's
do that.
true.
But then at the same time, it was kind of like, man, for some reason, he seems a little extra creepy in this show that he would probably be the perfect person to have be this kind of like child killer at the same time. But then,
Yeah.
going into the contradictory evidence, when I saw that, it wasn't what I was expecting. But then at that point, what was it? Do you like? What were your theories, I guess, at that point as to why it was so contradictory.
Um, I guess I couldn't. It being Stephen King, I knew there had to be some like body shifting thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to figure out how it all sort of fit together. One difference I did not put in here because it doesn't really matter or make any big changes.
Mm-hmm.
But so is it in episode one? I didn't put specifically, but Terry asks a question to that panel of people at the conference he's at, right?
Um,
Is that
yeah, I can't
episode
remember
one?
because I
I think it
I want to
is.
say maybe, yeah.
The only difference is in the book, it is mystery writer Harlan
Mm-hmm.
Coburn, and so that's in there, and they're playing up the, you know, one difference in the book and show is that Ralph's wife Janine is kind of like his more of his springboard with ideas and stuff
Mm-hmm.
of what's going on, and she's a big mystery writer, not writer, but mystery book reader.
Oh, okay.
So that doesn't actually change anything, but that's just a fun detail.
Well, I guess for me, like, I mean, I kind of knew that something supernatural was gonna be up by the time, like, when they showed us the two different videos.
Yeah,
Um, I wasn't like, I was thinking shapeshifter of some kind, but then in
yeah,
the back of my mind, I was also thinking possibly a unknown twin or a doppelganger. I just wasn't sure what was going into this, except that we saw that hooded figure with the
yeah,
deformed face. That kind of made me lean more towards the shape shifting, or at least
yeah,
face transfer of some kind.
yeah. That is a big giveaway, and again, that's not anything we get until later,
Hmm.
so you don't even know about that and how that's figured out. So, any more thoughts?
I think that's it. We can go into episode two, which is definitely the biggest shocker episode
Uh,
well, until later on.
yeah. Ralph meets Terry in prison before his arraignment. Uh, Terry brings up how he impacted Derek's life. He says touched him. I do not like that at all. Because remember, Ralph is like, did you touch my son? And like
Oh yeah.
did you,
Hmm.
abuse him? And he's like, no, I touched his heart emotionally.
Which
And
I
I'm like,
thought was a very good kickback for for him.
yeah. Uh, at the arraignment, they're going up to the courthouse, and the brother of Frankie Peterson, Ollie, ducks under the police railings and shoots a couple guards and kills Terry in the process.
Okay, before you go further, okay, actually, I'll just go ahead and let you finish the summary, and then we'll go
Uh,
back to it.
yeah, Ralph shoots and kills Ollie. And then it kind of jumps to later where a police officer, detective that Ralph works with, Jack, is called in from a hunting trip and is pissed off about it. The state investigator, which is the sheriff in a book, because they don't have a Bureau of Investigation in Oklahoma, Yoon, visits Ralph and tells him that they found a person who stole the van that Terry used to abduct Frank Peterson. He was a runaway from New York. Find out he was in Ohio the same time Terry was, and they find a scrap of paper in the van that is from Ohio. Mr. Peterson, the father of Ollie and Frankie, and the husband of the lady who died last episode, tries to kill himself. Obviously.
Hmm.
I mean, like, what, like, literally in the span of like a week, everyone is dead. Uh,
Yeah, and I've got some interesting theories on that, but go ahead.
Ralph goes to the DA. The DA says that he's finishing up his term for as attorney and then is not running for re-election. The DA then tells the story of Roanoke and how just, where there was this big like community and then they just all vanish and nobody knows what happens to them. and that some things just cannot be explained at all. See, I did it right here. I wrote Terry, but it's Ralph visits his psychiatrist after the shooting.
Hmm.
Ralph and Yoon meet the runaway who stole the van to get some clarifying details. Ralph tries to talk to Terry's wife and is only able to once Terry's lawyer Howie allows him to. Ralph asks Lori, that's not her name in the book. It's Marcy. I don't know why you changed that.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one of those random changes where I'm like, why did you change the name? Ask what happened in Ohio when they went on a family trip. Lori says that Terry went to visit his is it Alzheimer's or something?
I
Guy with
think so.
Alzheimer's in a hospital. And that was just like a normal trip other than that. And then one of Terry's daughters say that he got cut when he ran into a male nurse when he was visiting. And then we end with a guy in a farmhouse finding the clothes that Terry wore after he killed Frank Peterson with some like weird material on them, and that's how the episode ends.
Hmm. I
So jumping back to Terry getting killed.
I think that the whole Lori and what was it, Marcy?
Yeah,
It could be the last name. Marcy Maitland is a bit of a thing to say.
yeah.
Marcy Maitland. Marcy. I mean, it's not hard, but it might have just flowed better not having it.
Uh,
Double M's there.
maybe. The daughters also have different names, but I cannot remember what they are in the book, and I don't ever name
I
them
don't
in
remember what they
this.
are in the show.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They have names. I know they're different. That's all I can tell you.
So yeah, back to Terry getting killed, especially fairly early on in this episode.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right away.
go,
That's top first
yeah,
10, 20 minutes.
yeah, and when I'm watching this, even through the first episode, I'm thinking, all right, I got a good Jason Bateman show. I've seen him in Ozark. He does really good serious work, along with comedy and everything. It's
Didn't
like,
I
man, this
tell
is gonna be.
you, just to pause, that
Hmm.
in the book it mentions that Terry Maitland watched Ozark?
Oh yeah, you did
Didn't
tell
I
me that,
text you
which is
that?
yeah, that's a funny little thing.
Anyway, continue.
Um, but I'm thinking, yeah, he's gonna be a huge part in the show. It's just gonna focus on him and Ralph, and the next thing I know, he gets shot, and I'm thinking, oh, that's okay. He's just gonna, he's gonna recover from it. They're gonna save him. Your
He'll walk
typical
it
kind of
off.
thing.
He'll
Yeah,
walk it off.
I kind of just sat back and relaxed after that. Nope, go to the next scene. Sorry for your loss. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So Jason Bateman's dead. Where's
yeah.
the show going?
In the book, it is also a pretty big surprise. It is actually a little bit messier in the book
Hmm.
because they set up that the scene outside was not nearly as organized. Like they had those barricades up, but it was still like way like angrier.
Yeah.
During this, Ralph tries to actually shoot the boy Ollie and misses, and he like destroys a guy's video camera or reporter's video camera and like blinds that guy. Never
Wow.
go back to that.
Better shot than stormtroopers.
Yeah.
I
Uh
think it'd be harder to do what he just did, hitting the camera and blinding someone, than it would be to just shoot somebody.
yeah. And Terry's killed on the courthouse steps instead of just randomly in the middle of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And
I
there's
I
no
just thought
doctor
it
to
was
save him.
I just thought it was incredibly ballsy for anybody going into this without knowing where the story's going. Incredibly ballsy to have someone as big as Jason Bateman and just to kill him in the first episode in 10 minutes.
I know, and it's a real like one of those like spend time with Ollie a little bit in the book because you spend
Hmm.
time with those guys until they vanish. Because the dad is in a coma, and so
Yeah.
there's no reason to go back to him. So you get like you don't get like build up to it, but you see Ollie and the dad going through a lot,
Hmm.
which which is odd for a show that likes to add details to not add those details.
Hmm.
But it makes sense in like the Ollie is pissed at this guy and is gonna shoot and kill him. It's just shocking.
So when I was doing my reviews, one of the things I noted as I was watching, each episode, because I watched them weekly.
Yeah.
In episode 2, whenever, at this point, the kid had been shot after shooting Terry. The
Yeah.
dad had hanged himself. The mom had died of a heart attack. It all seemed like a lot, and I remember putting in my reviews that the outsider was present, I believe, at all of those events.
He
And
is.
and so, at this point we haven't really gotten much of what he did, what he's able to do. But I remember in that episode 2 review, I kept saying, it feels like he has some way to impose either depression or um, some kind of negative will onto people that are affected by the murder, because it felt like he was just being present was causing these people to do what they did. But at the same time, I didn't know if it was because of that or if it was because that was them reacting to the situation. But the only reason why it threw me off was because he was actually present at all of those instances.
I don't want to give it away too much.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, I'm just,
but I
first reactions
think,
whenever
yeah.
reading it.
And this show goes into more detail, like going back beyond Terry than the book does.
Hmm.
So it kind of sets more of a pattern. But I think it might be a little like a little A, a little B, right?
Hmm.
Where he feeds off that energy and so he like lets that out into the world.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I'll be.
Jack, just
Oh yeah, go ahead.
jumping ahead, Jack is on a fishing trip, not a hunting trip when he gets called back in. This might be surprising, but in the book, Ralph and Jack don't actually like interact that much together.
Oh, I definitely knew that whenever Jack came back, I definitely knew he was gonna end up being a bad guy, though. By the way,
Yeah, that's
he
very
just he just
obvious.
he definitely gave that off as soon as you saw him.
Uh, in the book, you actually go to Merlin, the runaway kid, when he's picked up. So in
Hmm.
the show, they just said, "Hey, this guy found him in the parking lot." In the book, you're introduced to him in the parking lot being found by the cop, and
Hmm.
you're in his head as he explains what's going on, and that he hopped a car in New York and kept driving. Uh, Yoon does not visit Ralph, but the DA visits Ralph to tell him he's not running for re-election.
Hmm.
And one of the two big differences is that in the show, Ralph is very against the supernatural.
Well, yeah, yeah.
The book, he is, but he has something in his past that's just like something he relates it to.
Hmm.
So in the book, the DA relates it to this tale that he heard or read of like these two newlyweds going out into like the desert, and the husband like walks off and then the footprints just stop in the middle of the sand somewhere as like what happened.
Hmm.
But the one Ralph brings up, which comes up a lot in the book, is the idea of when Ralph was a kid, he had this like he got a cantaloupe or something, like one of those type of fruits.
Hmm.
They have to cut open. And when he cuts it open, it's fine on the outside. He cuts it open, it's filled with like bugs and insects and worms and stuff.
You.
And it's one of those like it was fine. There were no holes. There's nothing on the outside to show that anything was wrong. Yet here it is. How to get there? And that's
Hmm.
kind of used to explain his idea that there's just some unexplained things,
Hmm.
and also to be like Terry Maitland. he looked fine on the outside, but he clearly killed this boy, as kind of his like explanation
I
for that
see.
as well. Of he
Yeah,
looks fine
yeah.
on the outside, but he's really like sick on the inside.
I got you. That makes sense now.
And Ralph never goes to see a psychiatrist in the book.
Which I think those parts are minimal but important in the show.
Yeah, which again,
Because
that's
you
one
can
of
see
those.
him developing, like throughout the show he's developing with the psychiatrist and the moments that he has as he's, starting to come to terms with things.
Yeah, it's weird because like I'm watching this stuff and I'm like, wow, the show I will say feels more like a Stephen King book than the actual book does in
That's
some
interesting.
ways. Well, like Derek being dead, that feels like a Stephen King thing, right?
Hmm.
Him going to see a psychiatrist, very
Yep.
Stephen King, I would think, but it's weird that's not in the book.
The
But
only more Stephen King thing would be if Ralph remembered that when he was a kid that there were a bunch of kids that were threatened by a creepy clown.
or that, yeah, there's no like schoolyard bullies in this, which is weird. I guess Jack is supposed to be that, right? Where he's like the psycho bully character.
Man, I've got some things to say about him later on.
Yeah, and he is also different in the book. Not like majorly different, but he has more dimension in the show.
Well, that's good.
Do you want to go to episode 3 or do you have anything else?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Uh Yoon, episode 3 opens with Yoon going to the barn and seeing all of their clothes in the unverifiable material. He uh Jack is then told to go investigate that. He does after he goes to the titty bar.
Of course.
Uh Ralph continues his own investigation at home where he finds the nursing home that Terry's dad is in. He meets Yoon and gets the lowdown on what all is happening at a Waffle House, which is the nicest Waffle House I have ever seen, by the way.
Hey, they're delivering now, right? Or
Oh,
no, not
don't tell me
delivering.
that.
Takeout.
Don't t-
Takeout.
don't tell me that because I'm just gonna want to get one of those things and get fat doing all of this, and I can't do that. Uh, Yoon and Ralph go and talk to Howie and Howie's private investigator Alec. Jack goes to the barn in a very actually like creepy scene, and he sees that guy in like the window in like the door frame, and then he gets jammed and infected with something. Uh, Alec and Howie call in an old friend of theirs, Holly Gibney, to help retrace all of Terry's steps in Ohio.
Probably my favorite character.
In therapy, we find out that Ralph used to get into bar fights after Derek died, and I guess he used to also drink harder stuff. I wanted to put in here that he no longer drinks, but we see him drinking beer.
Hmm.
So I assume he just doesn't drink like whatever it was, like whiskey or anything.
Hmm.
Terry's girls are being removed from the school, even though they did nothing wrong. Ralph and Alec go up to Chicago to meet Holly, and they give her the job.
Hmm.
Ralph has to go back to Terry's to see because Terry's daughter gets a message from the outsider telling him she needs to talk to Ralph because he gets a warning. He gives a
Hmm.
warning to Ralph, which I did not put this in here, but in the book we actually see those scenes. They're not just done off camera.
Yeah.
So you actually see the guy talking and like face changing and stuff. So you know something is going on.
Interesting. Yeah.
Janine talks to the daughter because Ralph like freaks her out, and Lori is pissed at Ralph, kind of obviously for good reason.
Ralph does not seem like a good kids person.
No. Uh Where was I? Well, yeah, visit, blah blah blah. Yeah, so Lori talks. Janine comes back over and talks with Lori about everything. Uh, Holly, we're back with Holly now. She tries to visit Peter, Terry's dad, and finds out there's a similar case about two mutilated girls, and that the person was sent to jail for the person who did it is in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, which I did not know what was going on because all of this stuff is added. We have been cutting back to that accused child killer while in jail.
Yeah, I remember
He
that.
is about to be jumped and shivved by this guy, but kills himself by filing his own glass, like eyeglass thing, down to a point.
Which was surprising to me. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, which I wasn't, because this guy's it's complicated. I'll explain in a minute.
Okay.
Jack is in a lot of pain, and he kind of says that he would do whatever this other person wants as his skin condition gets way worse. And that's how that episode ends.
So, question for you regarding Holly.
Yeah, so Holly is it's not that she's like a completely different character.
Mm-hmm.
So, backstory on Holly in the book. She is a side character in one of Stephen King's other series, where she is like similarly, I would guess, like autistic, where she has that like giant general knowledge focus.
Mm-hmm.
But her thing, which I would think why you want me to ask you about her, is because in the book, she is a giant movie buff,
Ah,
which is why I thought you'd want to know that.
interesting. Well, I know that she
Uh,
knows a lot of the like general, not because I remember there were some cases in the show where he asked her something or someone would ask her something regarding a movie and she would have the answer, like date, time, stuff like that. But it was her whole, what would you call it, ability to count things?
yeah, her just ability to have that knowledge. I guess it's not really like defined. It's one of those things I actually kind of like where it's both so general and so different that it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now, my question though is not a comparison between the show and the book, but I wonder, and maybe I'm just thinking this because a lot of things you could compare to this character that I'm getting ready to tell you. But to me, watching Holly the whole time always, for some reason, made me think of L from Death Note. Not necessarily because they did the same thing or had the same quirk, but they both had quirks that were unique to them, but
Yeah.
were both private investigators and could do their jobs extremely well, but you just had to deal with their quirks at the same time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I texted you that she has I said BDE, big Dexter energy, because
Yeah, I haven't
in
seen Dexter.
well, in Dexter, right? So he's obviously like a psychopath because he
Yeah.
kills people, but he tries to hide it, but he's clearly like off in ways and is
Hmm.
trying not to be. In the book, Holly is off, but she's trying not to be,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. So I was like, oh, this is like a Dexter thing where she's, you know, she has these quirks, but she's trying not to let that, try to move on without them.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jack in the book is is a much bigger jerk. Uh, and this is one of these things where it's hard to describe. So the outsider threatening Ralph is earlier in the book, but Holly comes later. So that's one
That's
of
a
those weird
weird.
things.
Yeah.
The guy who is in prison as the accused killer in Ohio, he's not in the book because he killed himself before Holly gets there.
Oh, so we're just actually seeing it happen rather than just being told that it happened.
Yeah, I mean, he hangs himself in the book, so it's not.
Oh, I thought the show did it a little bit cooler.
Yeah, there's
So I'm
some
like,
things
oh man,
where.
he's about to get effed up, but then he ends up just killing himself. I'm like, oh wow, okay.
And Janine and Lois/Marcy don't really bond at all until the end of the book.
Hmm.
Like they are like closer friends, I would say, but they're not like how they are in the show where they constantly go back to each other all the time.
Yeah.
And fun fact, I added this in like a little bit because it's not exact because of how the book is done.
Hmm.
Because there's some things shifted around. But we are on episode 3 and are halfway through the book.
That's that's just strange to me.
Yeah, we are halfway through the book at this point.
But all right, well, let's move into episode 4 then.
This is the part where I have moved from just taking notes after the episode to
Hmm.
doing it while I was watching. So these get long.
Okay.
So I try to cut stuff out.
Yeah.
We
Because
find out that, yeah,
okay.
we
I was
find
just
out,
saying I'm gonna let you go ahead and go through and do the summaries on all these episodes. That way we can just talk generally about everything because it's really hard. I mean, I could give you like episode, thoughts as I was watching it, but it's hard to really take in the whole series as a whole until you are given all the information. But
yeah. So we open up and find the guy who killed himself, Heath Hofstadter, which he does not look like a Hofstadter.
it's a very intriguing name.
I mean, that's I don't want to be racist, but he doesn't look like one. Uh, his name is Heath Holmes in the book, and why don't you just keep with that? I would have not had any questions if his name was Heath Holmes.
Well, that sounds like a much more fitting name than Hofstetter. I don't think I've
Yeah,
ever met a Hofstetter before.
Isn't that like one of the guys on Big Bang Theory's name?
Oof, I don't
Hofstadter?
even know. I don't think I've ever watched a single episode of Big Bang Theory. Sorry to
Uh,
anyone that's listening to this and hate me now.
no, I haven't. It's been a while. Uh, Holly tells Ralph that the guy killed himself in the morning. Holly then follows an employee of the hospital home, and gets pepper sprayed by that woman because she's a creeper following a woman home. Uh, we find out that that woman used to work with Heath, and that he was the one who ran into Terry on the way when Terry was visiting, and that he too was similarly out of town on vacation, but then came back and did the killings.
So, very clear similarities here.
Yeah. Uh, Jack hunts a deer and like tosses it out somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Lori is looking for a homeschool teacher, but just keeps getting like fake reporters and stuff. Later that night, I'm assuming not assuming that she does this just that night. She goes out to dinner with Howie and the Andersons and gets yelled at by a-holes in town. Like, if you remember that scene where he's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go, like, he doesn't say I'm gonna kill your kids, but like someone needs to even the score.
Yeah.
Ralph keeps coming back to Terry getting scratched, and he looks over a video and sees that Terry scratched one of his witnesses, Claude. He's a bouncer in the book, but he's like a manager in the show, doesn't matter, of the strip club.
Mm-hmm.
Jack does some shopping at Home Depot. Holly meets this mall cop who used to be a detective and is not in the book at all,
Mm-hmm.
and gets information on the Hofstadter case. Jack brings all of this stuff back to the woods where the deer has been eaten, if you can call it eating.
So the outsider is a hungry deer eater.
Yeah. Fun thing, because they focus on that lamp,
Mm-hmm.
and this will come in at the end. The only thing we ever really see when we meet the outsider is that he has this lamp. And so I was like, oh, the lamp is important. It means something. Holly and that mall cop, whose name I put in later when I actually remember what it is, go out on a date, and you learn that Holly was like tested or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we find out his mom killed herself by driving into a pole, and then that his brother also dies. Ralph visits Claude at work to ask him about the scratch. Holly and this cop continue to bond, and then they actually kiss. How nice! Even
Oh
though
yeah,
they've
she
known
actually
each
has
other,
feelings.
they've known each other for a day. Holly talks through the case with the hotel bartender, and we find out Heath went out of town to New York, where he might have met someone who also got accused of the crime. None of this is in the book, by the way. Any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Tamika, who is one of the other detectives, whose name is Betsy Liggins in the book,
Interesting.
has a baby and hands out invitations to her like baby shower. Yeah, that's a super random name change.
It's a
To her,
late
not
baby shower too.
well, not baby shower. I guess it's like christening, she says.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, hey, I made this. It's like when someone makes off, builds a house and they have a housewarming. I made this. It's exactly like that. There's no differences. Uh, uh, Holly has a flashback of when she was in an MRI machine, and that, like, I guess a grandmother or someone gives her this doll. During yeah. Blah, 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 blah. In New York City, Holly goes to Rikers, and Ralph goes to meet Merlin separately from that. Holly meets with the woman to see if she recognizes Heath. She does not, but it turns out in like the beginning of the episode, that the outsider met with Heath and they hooked up and then like cut Heath on like the back of the neck or something.
Mm-hmm.
That woman, the woman who's in jail, had both her father and uncle killed by the grandfather of the kid she's accused of killing. Her name is Maria, by the way.
Interesting.
I didn't know that until the moment I wrote it. She says she knows who is doing all of this, and you're like, awesome, cool. But then she can't say who it is. One of the visitors at the jail gives her like a note to come to her house. Merlin talks to Ralph and says he lied and knows who took the van with the scrap of paper, but was scared because he looks like a deformed guy with a hood on.
Mm-hmm.
Holly goes to the apartment where the woman says that the killer is El Cuco, the Spanish boogeyman who like eats children.
Scary.
She says it can look like a human and also eats the grief of people around him.
Which makes sense back to my theory earlier to a certain extent.
Yeah, that makes sense. It works. Holly does research and she finds a image of El Cuco with like this giant hood on. Again, most of this, the police work is accurate, but a lot of stuff is added in. So in the book, Holly just follows some random employee home who is like, the way she describes it in the book is like, the woman drives like a busted up car but smokes, so she will have information if I just pay her, which she does.
Yeah.
The scratch that Claude receives is mentioned in the initial questioning with Ralph. So that's not like some reveal. It's like he already knew about it, which got him thinking. Merlin did not see the outsider as far as I recall. And this is jumping ahead, but in the book, Holly, I guess, knows about El Cuco or
Mm-hmm.
like has like ideas about it and then does research on her way to the big debriefing scene.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that she believes in all of this stuff because in the previous book series she was in, which is the Bill Hodges like Mr. Mercedes trilogy,
Yeah.
which is also a TV show, by
Is
the
she,
way.
does she, is she in that TV show?
I do not know, and the only reason I know it's a TV show is because on Screen Rant
Mm-hmm.
it said season 3 of Mr. Mercedes is the best one yet, and I just paused and was like, there were 2 other seasons?
Apparently, I'm looking it up right now, but go ahead.
Yeah, tell me who's actually playing Holly or if she's in it. Cause that one,
She is not. Holly's in it, but she's not played by the same actress.
that's interesting. I
Hmm.
guess like rights wise she would be in it because she's in this story and important to it, but
Yeah.
in that series we get a little bit of like the background of what happens in it and that there's some more like supernatural things occurring in it, but more like psychic stuff. Like controlling like people with their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, episode 5 has a police shootout with some guy who also has a similar neck infection to what Jack has. And then we jump back 3 days earlier. Jack brings another deer offering and sees that the lamp is destroyed. So I felt really clever for a second, and then they destroy the thing I felt clever about. But it's a good scene because he kind of like yells and like snorks off to this, mythical being and then gets totally put in his place.
Yeah, I love all those scenes where he's getting messed up by him.
We go to Janine, uh, where she sees a guy in a hoodie at work where she is. I don't actually know what she does, and we don't find out in the book.
Huh.
I have gone from this point on in my notes to referring to the outsider hunting party as the team,
Makes
just
sense.
for ease, just because it's easier.
Yeah.
Uh, update the team update and discuss all of Holly's updates they have learned. Jack stalks the team as they're leaving a meeting, and Ralph does his own research on Murrieta's home. Janine mentions that this guy mentions to everyone to take off their hoods, but it's just a guy napping because she's really scared of him. Because he's like, he doesn't take his hood off. What's going on? Oh, he's just napping. While Janine is like very upset by all this and takes a nap. Ralph
Mm-hmm.
tries to wake her up, but then this is actually confusing. Where it's just a flashback to when they were fighting after Derek died and how sad she
Mm-hmm.
was. Uh, that scene. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but didn't make sense watching it.
Yeah. Oh, I
Uh,
understand.
yeah. In Ohio, Holly talks to the bartender about boogeymen and hypothesizes all about Okuko. She then uses the bartender to visit the cemetery, where the two ghosts died, and is like, he must be feeding off of them.
On a
Yeah.
side note, I'm curious. Has El Cuco ever been in the X Files? Because I don't think it's ever been in Supernatural, and it seems like something that would have been in both of those.
I do not know. We could advertise that we're
And
going to do a series all about those kind of shows.
oh, that is true. We are going to be doing that. What what were the name we were going with?
Hunt the Creature,
Yes. So
because
Hunt the Creature will be looking at all of those Creature of the Week serialized type shows, such as Supernatural or The X Files, Buffy, Angel. Am I missing any other ones?
Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf, oh, which is good. I'm excited to watch that, but I've been waiting so that we can do it for the show.
Yeah. I was gonna rewatch I was gonna rewatch one of the shows, probably Buffy, just
Hmm.
because of our current situation, and I was just like, I'll just wait till we watch it together.
That works for
Uh,
me. But go ahead.
anyway, this book, by the way, has a real big like X-Files vibe to it,
Hmm.
and so that's interesting because Stephen King wrote an episode of the X-Files.
I did not know that.
It's the season 5 episode, where if you can imagine it, Scully goes to Maine for vacation.
Of course. Of course
And
she goes to
during
Maine.
and during that time, Mulder is just like shooting, is like messing around his house because he's bored.
Uh-huh.
It's fun. Uh, at the strip club, Ralph gets like this weird feeling, cause we know why, but it's he just has this weird feeling.
Yeah.
Janine goes to the kitchen and sees the outsider who tells her like to sit down, and again threatens her to
Hmm.
stop or he'll kill them.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm gonna skip some of it because a lot of it is not really important.
Yeah, you're good. I
Other
just
than
want to make sure we've got time at the end to talk about the whole thing.
yeah. Well, again, these are very long because I literally
Yeah.
do the entire episode. Uh, but she just tells Ralph that to stop or that he doesn't want to stop. One of those things, relaying the whole message.
Yeah.
Holly visits the Hofstadter house from the opening and sees that's being taken care of. Uh, Holly goes to the cemetery, and across from the cemetery is like an abandoned plantation house. It looks like that's the best thing way I could describe it.
Hmm.
And she kind of like gets a sense that the outsider was staying there. And then she goes to the Hofstadter plot and sees like an abandoned factory. Holly then is like she calls Ralph in to take pictures of where Terry is buried and see like if there's anything around. They do this and they go to the graveyard, and because I'm skipping a lot now.
You're good.
Janine tells Lori, blah blah blah. Who cares? Uh, Janine. Oh yeah, because Janine goes and talks to Lori and the girls to get more pictures of the outsider. Ralph and Yoon compare Claude's prints at the scene, and of course, there's nothing there. Yoon and Ralph drive, and Ralph shows him the picture, and they notice how he's like changing over time.
Yeah. So he's clearly shape shifting.
In a good, I mean, it works, but it doesn't because the drawings aren't great. But
Hmm.
you get the point.
Yeah.
When they go to the plot, Lori can't find the headstone, and we find out that it's defamed. That's not important, other than it's just a good detail.
Yeah.
And then the big twist is that you find out the cemetery is right by the barn where they found all that clothing.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah. Uh, I do not remember if that's in the book or not. I don't think it is, but that like detail of him being of the Maitlands being there since the Civil War is still true. That's in the book. At the baby shower, I'll talk to him. At the baby shower, Ralph tries to talk to Jack, who gets angry and storms off. And Tamika confronts him over his behavior. Ralph tells Holly to come down and go through her discoveries. That night, Andy, who's the mall cop's name, calls and they come upstairs and whatever. She relays the story about the investigation of the murdered children. They lay down for a while and then it cuts so we don't actually know what happens. Tamika
Oh,
has
we know what happens.
cool. It's not important. Tamika has a dream that the outsider steals her baby. Then we see the guy from the opening grab a gun and take a guy hostage and then gets
Hmm.
himself killed. During this, Holly's car breaks down on the highway. Andy wakes up the next morning and finds the research. And that's really it. Jump to a scene where we see the blisters on the guy's neck. And Ralph lays in Derek's bed and gets visions of Derek telling him to let him go. Uh, Seeing if there's any big changes. I think the only real change that I'll just bring up now is that so the outside wearing a hoodie is like a big thing, right?
Yeah.
In the book, he is not wearing a hoodie.
Well, that would make it very obvious if anybody was looking at him.
Well, so what he's doing in the book is that he has one sec. In the book, he's wearing that. So they do not find the shirt that Terry was wearing before when he killed the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, remember from the arraignment this guy wearing a like turban, I guess would be the way to describe it, like a shirt as like a head wrap.
So like, oh, the professor in the first Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, basically. Yes, that's actually really good.
Yeah, try.
So, yeah, that's a big thing.
Did you ever once think that Andy was somewhat suspect?
Uh,
Like of him, I don't know if it was how it was presented in the show of him seeing or looking at the evidence, but he just seemed a little suspect to me for some
yeah.
reason.
Yeah, he was a big question mark for me because I didn't know, like, because he's not in the book, so I don't know who he is.
Yeah.
So it's hard to gauge. I think I kind of thought he would be, uh, well, one, once we get to the end and where everything happens, I knew that was going to happen with him.
Yeah.
But I guess was thinking he might have been another one of the outsiders, like pawns. That would have been good.
See, that's what I was thinking for some reason because he was up in that area anyways, and that's where the outsider was.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just a random addition.
But he ended up being a pretty good character, so.
Yes. We find out that the person who killed him is Tracy Powell, who is like a first who's like a first cousin to Heath and what is a pawn of the outsider.
Mm-hmm.
Holly gets on a bus. Ralph compares the pictures of the outsiders. And Holly has a dream that they're about to hit a truck and then they just grind against the guardrail for, I guess, just to try and stop her. Jack wakes up and the blisters are gone because he's been doing his job.
Good boy, Jack.
I know, isn't he such a good boy? Where am I? Janine and Ralph go over the pictures that all they have, and Ralph tries to deny what's going on, what's very clearly going on. Janine says that they are going to have this meeting that she wants to attend, as well as anybody who's been affected by Terry Maitland.
Mm-hmm.
Jack calls and asks if he can come, and they do. Janine brings some of Derek's toys over to Lori. And this is where it happens, sorry. And that's where she gets the daughter to like go further in detail to draw the faces.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to skip through some stuff. Ralph comes home and this is where he sees the outsider's facial cycle. Jack picks up Holly at the bus station and they get food. Jack asks for a sneak preview of what they're going to talk about. Holly says that she's still getting her thoughts together. Holly notices that Jack is kind of looking distant and like out of it, and Jack says his wife left him.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets a threatening message in poop to have him from the outside to have her stop. Like make her stop. The team meet at Howie's office where they go over the theory. And during this, right before it, Andy gives her some more information. Holly goes through the case and figures out and findings and theories about how everyone is being selected, and that they need to expand their sense of reality because the kids were killed by El Cuco. Yoon knows the story because he's Hispanic,
Yeah.
which feels like you could call racist on that, but it's fine. Holly says that they need to, they can't keep going backward because that's not going to stop him. So they have to, stop him now. Lori is, of course, pissed because, she's wasting what is her money to hunt for, a fairy tale,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. Ralph also doesn't buy it. But Alec, the private investigator, does. And then there's the story about the Yiddish vampire for some reason.
The episode is actually called "The One About the Yiddish Vampire."
Yeah. What they do in the book, which I'll get to in a minute, is way more interesting. But I'll tell that in a second. Holly stays with the Andersons, which does happen. And she says that this time in between the killings is him changing appearance. And then Holly makes her own blacklight when she finds out about the outsider coming into the Anderson house. And that they find, fingerprints and that same weird residue from the barn in their house. Holly assumes that's like shedding its skin almost. Lori tries to clean out all of Terry's stuff. Jack leaves his shower to see his dead mom in the kitchen and starts, beating the crap out of him.
Love that scene.
It's weird. Well, it's way different in the book, which I'll get to in a second. Ralph goes to Derek's room and asks if it was really him, and then he goes and talks to Lori. Back with Claude, he breaks up a bar fight, a fight in the bar. He goes outside to cool off, and that's when we see that Yoon is surveilling him. I assume that's him. I think that's who it's supposed to be. Holly says that El Cuco is a god and is trying to stop them because he knows that they're getting close.
Mm-hmm.
Lori goes upstairs and to see that the daughter is like trying to, I guess, help or clean up. I have no idea. Jack tells Holly. Sorry, I'm jumping around.
You're good.
Lori goes upstairs. Holly prints out the photos of Terry's neck. There we go. And sees the blisters. Jack's house is a literal bloody mess. He gets up and the blisters are even worse now. And then Jack calls Holly to meet him at the to say they're gonna go meet at the barn. And not to talk to the Andersons. Holly picks up Jack later on and notices his wounds. And she drops like cleaning wipes so she can see those blisters on him.
Yep.
So the one thing that is really different, I would say, in this scene is that I got an email. What is... I do not know what that is all about. Anyway.
Well, up to this point, I was fully expecting Holly to become victim to Jack in order to push Ralph and everyone else into believing what she was saying. Like, I was actually thinking that she was going to die in the next episode.
They don't. This entire plot is not in the book.
Oh.
But in the book, so the way she describes what's going on is there's this video she finds, being a film buff, where there is an old luchador film about the El Cuco, and she shows the film to the people, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" But even from that, they all then decide to go. So the next that kind of change is they all decide to go to Texas because Claude is at this point already left, and is
Um,
visiting Texas now.
in the show though, it's Tennessee, isn't it?
Yeah, well, again, it makes more sense when it's in Oklahoma.
Well, yeah, I guess that does make sense.
So yeah, I'll get to that change, but yeah, that's the difference. In the book, Jack is different. So the outsider gives him those blisters and says it's skin cancer
Hmm.
because his mom does not attack him and beat the crap out of him. She is he wakes up and she's like laying next to him with her skin oozing off or whatever, and
Ew.
is like, do what he says or you end up like me, and he's like really scared about it.
Huh. I think I like it better in, well, I don't know. I guess I'd have to see it visually.
Yeah. Uh it's just a lot less, over the top.
Yeah.
Jack and Holly actually never even meet, just to show you how different it is.
See, I like the concept of where like what they were doing, where they were taking these two characters, but I didn't like, which we're about to get into, episode 7,
Yeah.
when we actually get to see what happens. It was probably my most disappointing episode, not because I was expecting her to, die, but because I feel like it was the one episode that not that much really. I mean, I know there's a lot that goes on in every episode, but
Yeah.
it just felt like the least significant episode of the series so far.
Just to give you some perspective, again, stuff has been shifted around,
Hmm.
but this is about the final third of the book now.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And there's still 4 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, jumping a little bit, the episode 9 and 10 are closer to the ending of the book.
Hmm.
It's fleshed out more from there, but it's still like the end of it. No, not 5. I need 7. There we go. Uh, and he is packing up to travel. Ralph goes through the case and takes down the drawings and the notes and sees the outsider chair is missing. Yeah. Janine
Yeah.
wonders where Holly left early in the morning. Lori calls Howie about her going back to work and get time stamp of that 3 weeks have passed since all of this has happened. Ralph finds that the picture Holly printed out, back with Holly, she and Stack are still driving to the barn, and they kind of talk about the outsider and speculate about him. And I kind of like that Jack reveals he's working for him a little bit.
Hmm.
And this is basically all they do when they're back in the car together, right?
Yeah. Um,
That's the
we're not
that's
we're
literally
not
all
there
that happens.
yet, but I absolutely hate how she got away. But go ahead.
I mean, I guess it works. It's fine. Uh, Ralph tries to call, but they keep getting voicemail for both of them. He calls Alec and Howie. Alec and Ralph meet up. Claude is leaving the strip club and is unsure of what to do with himself. Lori tries to sell a house to a growing family and then goes off and bites their head off, even though they seem like genuinely fine enough people.
Oh, they were looking at her funny though.
Really? I did not notice at all.
They were looking at her funny. They were giving her a look.
See, I felt like they only started to do that when she started to get, like hostile with them.
Yeah.
It didn't, like before that, it seemed, I actually didn't. Again, in the book, you have no idea what she does for a living.
Yeah.
So I was like, she sells houses, that's fine. Ralph and Alec break into Jack's place and see that it's wrecked, so they're like, oh crap, Holly's dead. They put out a bolo on Jack. Ralph visits Tamika to talk about Jack, but Tamika says she wants to leave homicide. Uh, After she has a baby in the book, you don't really talk to her again or see her again.
Hmm.
They find Holly and Jack's phones. They drive after them. Holly pulls over to a gas station and says that she has a period and needs to go to the bathroom. She tries to sneak through the bathroom window, only to sprint back to the car and drive off, leaving Jack in the parking lot. Alec and Ralph talk while they drive up there. Alec tells a story of being lost in the wood and hearing someone call his name before being found by a rescue party. It's supposed to be like scary spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Lori's business partner says that the couple may file charges against her for emotional damages.
No, get out of here.
That's what I was like. I was like, really?
Yeah, I
Really?
was like, get out of here with that crap.
Yeah. Well, but Lori, yeah. But sympathizes with Lori wanting to stay and not being chased out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Lori says that she's ready to sue now. She's ready to sue the city and everybody.
Which
Uh,
is pretty much just dropped after this episode.
Well, she doesn't even sue anybody in the book, so there you go.
Yeah, I just didn't see the point in her even bringing it up because I was expecting it to be brought back in, but it was never brought up again.
Ralph and Alec reach the gas station and find the cell phones are wrecked for some reason. You could have just left them there. Because Jack goes, he leaves anyway and tries to kill himself, but can't. Holly just randomly is back at the Anderson house now. And she goes through everything that happened. She says that the outsider only really feeds on children and that they know where Jack is. No, they ask if she knows where Jack is, but she does not. Jack is hitchhiking down the road and picked up by an 18-wheeler. Yoon shows Holly a picture of Claude, and she says she hasn't seen him before. Andy shows up looking for Holly. Yoon and Ralph speculate on what happened with Holly. Yoon says Ralph wants sense while he wants. Oh yeah, this makes sense. Yoon says Ralph just wants everything to make sense, while Yoon just wants everything to end, right?
Yeah.
Ralph is like, I want it to make 100% logical sense, and Yoon is just like, dude, let's just finish this, please. Andy joins the team. Holly and Janine realize Claude is the outsider's next target through their pictures. This is where that breaks down because in the book, you see that when the outsider visits Janine, he has that can't and must tattoo on his hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that is more like definitive, like he is the person.
Yeah.
Holly dreams that Jack shoots her in the head and she freaks out. Someone really should just like run in there because she like jumps up and is like screaming bloody murder, and then nobody comes in.
Which I thought was a sign of her being infected by the outsider. I know infected isn't the right word, but I thought that at that point it was something like he had gotten inside her head and now he was going to be able to, take control of her. So another instance where I thought something was going to be done with Holly that wasn't done.
Yeah, I mean, based on the twist ending, you could.
Yeah,
but...
I was like, man, I don't hope she dies, but it'd be pretty cool if she died. Oh, well, she didn't die. Oh, nice. Looks like she might get controlled by him. No, she's not getting controlled by him. Damn.
Some differences is that Yoon in the book is way more talkative and upbeat.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an example, you haven't seen Dexter, but one of the cops in that is like a really like upbeat like Hispanic guy, and I thought, oh, they should get him to play Yoon. He'd be great.
Yeah.
And then in the book, Jack hates Ralph specifically because this is where like Jack falls apart as a character in the book because he has like nothing to him.
Mm-hmm.
And on an evaluation, Ralph just writes no opinion, and that like pisses him off because he's like, you have an opinion, you just don't want to say it.
Well, that's kind of lame. That's why I liked his character in the show though, because he is fleshed out, and by the time you get to the end of it, you actually kind of care for him because he's doing it. I don't want to say because he really doesn't have a choice in a way, but you feel bad for him.
Yeah,
because he's in that situation.
In the book, he really does like want to just do it because he does honestly hate them and does not want to end up with skin cancer.
Yeah.
Jack is able to get the police off of his apartment and grabs all of his hunting stuff. Claude goes to Tennessee to visit his brother and stays with them. Holly says that they need to isolate the outsider and like figure out what his weak and figure out that he is weak because he's been having to do all of this extra work than he usually does. And so the plan is to like keep up all of this pressure that they're putting on him till he slips up.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the team, Andy, Yoon, and Ralph and Holly all go to Tennessee. Yoon calls ahead to make sure that Claude is in police custody in case anything happens.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. Which, I'll explain. There's a difference in the book, but it's way different now. Not like way different.
Mm-hmm.
We find out that Claude's brother does puzzles. That's just a fun bit. There's lots of talking while they're driving, and we get a little bit more of Book Yoon when he and Andy are talking. That's very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Blah blah blah. Claude leaves for. Yeah, that's when he's gets put over by the police, and he's told to get out and is placed in jail. Ralph
felt bad for him. He's just like, man, I'm just trying to get away. You guys just won't leave me alone.
Yeah, well,
I mean, we know why, but he was just kind of funny.
I like the scene later where it's like he's talking to the guards about him working at the bar. I think that's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph talks about this another unexplained ironic situation of when Derek is born, he hears his mom's favorite song, and the last time he heard it was when his mom died.
Oof.
Claude's brother busts in all hot and bothered, and the cops just tase him. Jack kills a guy and steals his truck. We meet I called them, I think they were given a name, but I do not remember what it is. I called them the Griswolds because they're on a family vacation. And that they're going to these caves in Tennessee. In Cecil, Tennessee, which I do not know if that's a real place. Alec goes and talks to Harry. Oh, the team shows up and get Claude and his brother out of jail. Alec shows up and tells Harry that he didn't want to go because whatever was happening reminded him of his military days. That entire part is meaningless. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you why in a second. The outsider continues to bully Jack, and it's very funny.
I know. That's where I'm starting to feel bad for Jack.
So Griswolds go to Cavestock, which I cannot believe it's actually called Cavestock. That's ridiculous. The team goes to the brother's house and fill him in on everything that's happening. And Claude says that he has felt something like in his head, in his mind. Holly tells Ralph to go home unless he really believes that all of this stuff is happening. At Cavestock, we set up that the outsiders picked his next victim, this random boy. He wants to see the saber-toothed tiger caves, which is a cool thing. Only the outsider comes and there's this scary bear cave to go to with a strange man, which that boy is dumb, but there's this bear cave. Holly spoils the puzzle, which is an elephant, which is very funny. Alex says he needs to go to Cecil because he abandoned Holly. The outsider is caught when the boy's sister sees him walking off with some random guy, obviously.
Yeah.
Andy and Holly go to the store, and Holly goes to Strip Mall Church where she meets Yoon, and a very good scene. In the book, I'll just mention it now because I didn't write it anywhere. Holly is, I guess, atheist, but she still prays every night anyway, just to have a sense of normalcy in her life, which is cool. The Griswolds go to the police station about the boy almost being abducted. The team gets ready to go to bed. Ralph wakes up to see Claude being paranoid in his bedroom, which is good because we don't actually see that in the book. Howie and Alec show up at Claude's house the very next morning, just in time for the police to come looking for Claude. So, first change, and why all of those scenes with Howie and Alec were pointless, they just go the first time. When they're deciding to go to Texas in the book, they just all go.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of odd that they didn't just go with them to begin with.
There are caves in the book, but they well, this will make more sense. I wrote this when we didn't know about the actual Bear Caves, but there are caves in the book. That's in the book. It's called something different. The one difference, which I'll mention in the next one instead, or I can mention it now, is that so Claude does not go to meet his brother. He goes to meet his mom in Texas. And the difference is why that's important is because at the cave-in that we will get to, it's not some distant relatives. It's his brother, his like uncle, his dad, all of them are killed at the cave-in. Not just some random relatives like from a long time ago. So that's one of those. I guess that makes that I split the difference. It's fine. It doesn't really matter what the difference is.
Yeah.
We don't see Jack drive or kill anybody. Or I guess we do see him drive a little bit, but not kill anybody. Holly. So here's a big difference. Holly wants Ralph to believe because Holly sees a lot of Bill Hodges from her series in him and wants him to be like that.
Yeah.
And Claude, which this is a weird thing. In the book, he's never actually accused of any crimes. They take care of it before any of that stuff happens.
Interesting.
And we do not get a timetable in the book of how long it takes the outsider to change faces.
And in the show, it was what, 23-ish days?
Yeah.
Give or take?
Yeah, so we don't get any kind of time with that. We open with boys playing in a barn, and because I changed it after I found this out, but we find out that earlier that Jack's name is John, and so when we meet them, they say John, and I thought it was him. I thought it was Jack when he was a little kid. And so for like half of this, I was like, oh, we keep going back to him to build him out. No, this is setting up that they go play in caves and then they get stuck and lost in the caves.
Which I actually really like this episode and seeing the past. Like whatever was going on in the past with the caves and everything was kind of interesting.
Yes, I like it. Let's see. Ralph and Yoon talk their way out of the situation with the Griswold, like with the cops, and want to talk to the Griswolds. Ralph talks to Howie about believing in the outsider. The team speculates if the outsider can even be killed. They then plan to keep Claude and the outsider occupied because they have like a mental link. Ralph calls Janine and says that they're making some progress and confirmed his location. We continue with the boys exploring the woods and going into the caves. It's very good. The team figure out that the outsider is just getting very desperate right now. Because
his plan failed.
Well, his plan failed, and he's getting very hungry. The DA. So we never really cut back to him at all. The DA gets a heads up about a new boy found dead on a hiking trail, and this is not important for really anything in the plot.
Keep in mind, at this point, I forgot who the DA was, so it took me a second to realize, oh, wait, that's that guy from earlier on.
Yeah, who has a different name in the book. Again, for some reason. And he is, you also forget about him in the book, because, again, they just kind of leave him behind. I mean, it does help a little bit because he sets up the, the alibi, but it's, weird. So they decide to have Claude and Howie go for a drive to get food.
The good old chicken.
Yes.
Fried chicken.
Oh, excuse me. Holly and Andy go and check out local cemeteries for the outsider because they don't know about the caves. Ralph and Yoon talk to the Griswold boy about the previous episode's events. Andy and Holly go to Cavestock and investigate, finding some of the black ooze on like a cave map. Griswold Sr. says that the outsider had these weird looking eyes, like he was still wearing a mask. In the book, it's that the outsider has like straw eyes that look like straw. Which is that's a very specific thing that I'm surprised they didn't pick up on.
So he's Hawkins from One Piece.
Kind of, yeah. The DA looks at the photos of the boy that was killed again for some reason, because this is never really brought up. Howie and Claude share some roadside chicken. I actually put that in here.
I actually wish I could try some of it.
Howie says that he does not remember Claude, even though he represented him, because, Claude is not that bad a guy, which is a part of the book and this, that he's framing a known criminal. So if anything
Claude's actually a pretty nice guy.
Yeah. Going back to the boys who go into the cave, their dad cannot find them, and so he gets a posse together. And then we find out that this happened to the Claude and the brothers' family a long time ago, where they go into the caves to look for the boys, and they keep calling out, and it collapses on them and kills them.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess also the boys do not make it out either. And so that is where most of his family is at. Most of the Claude's family died at.
Yep.
So he is most likely there. He says that the only entrance is an old gift shop, and probably where the outsider is staying. Lori and Janine talk. The team loads up and rolls out. Howie watches the Bolton brothers, Claude's, because that's his last name. I just never said that before. But Claude's brother tells him what's going on, and he's like, "You idiot! Now the outsider knows." Howie tries to
really dumb.
Yeah. Howie tries to call the team, but can't get through because of cellular service, and so they go after them. Jack arms himself and goes to a sniper's perch and drinks. And then a snake comes up to him and he knocks it away. The team pulls up. Jack gets into his shooting position and he kills Alec.
Which completely just blows his head apart.
Yeah. So there are some similarities here.
It's surprising, though, how well Jack can shoot drunk. It makes me wonder what stormtroopers are really on when they're shooting.
Yeah, that's a good question.
He's got some pretty good aim.
Well, they did mention that he was a sharpshooter, right? And then got he had failed the psych eval.
Yeah.
So some differences. Claude only want to go get the chicken, and the outsider does not find out about the plan. He just sends Jack up there anyway, just for safety.
Well, I guess it makes more sense to have him find out about the plan. Maybe. I don't know.
Jack, he kills Alec, and he kills, going ahead, he does kill everybody that he does, except Andy, because he's new. But the only reason he shoots Alec is because he cannot get a shot on Ralph. So that's why he kills him. And that it was immediate relatives that died, not his past family that died. So a lot of this is similar. The team scatters when Jack shoots. Ralph figures out that Jack is the one that's shooting them. Howie and the Boltons show up to this OK Corral, and they all shoot back at each other. Jack has to hit a snake back off the rocks. I accidentally wrote snack there. Good on me. I wrote this at 10 o'clock at night, so it was pretty late for me. He kills Claude's brother and shoots Yoon in the arm, which Yoon does get shot in the arm in the book. Just a fun fact. Andy runs out to the truck only to get shot by like to run and escape. But
Absolute dumbest decision in the whole show, I think.
yes, is shot, and then he blows up the truck by shooting at the gas tank, and then this is when Harry also gets killed in the process of the truck blowing up. So that's fun. This
Mhm.
I actually hate all of this. I will be honest
Yeah,
with you.
a lot of it in the show, I was just like, oh, of course that happened. Oh, of course.
Well,
Oh, well, of course.
it's I would say it later, but it's a lot smaller in the book. But both Alec and Howie die in the book as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, which I didn't even like it in the book either, because I'm like, who can like, yeah, you killed them, but I don't know. I guess the point is to show that's a serious situation,
Mm-hmm.
but also, I don't know. I like a lot of this climax I do not like.
Yeah.
Uh, Jack has Holly in his sights, but he just can't shoot her. The outsider tries to force him, but Jack fights back, only to get struck by the rattlesnake.
Which was funny. I saw that coming a mile away.
Yes, and also this exact same thing happens in the book. Uh,
Oh, cool.
but I would say like the difference is that like in the show, doesn't it feel like the outsider is kind of controlling the snake, or do you think it's more
Uh,
natural?
I think it's more natural. I always thought it was just Jack being too drunk to really realize that, hey, Mother Nature is still there, and Mother Nature's gonna get you.
Yeah, cause I would say in the book it's more obvious that it's nature, cause he's being like a dick to the snake and knocking him around.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a little like so then it feels like more like you go snake. Yeah, he was being mean to you. You bite him.
It was kind of like when you know how he's bullying people through the whole show, pretty much,
Yeah,
and he goes and bullies Mother Nature, and Mother Nature's like, oh well, I hope you know that I'm gonna get you back for that.
yeah, which similar to the book in that way. Only he gets bitten in the crotch. So he actually says that, man, it's like swollen down there.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph and Holly head into the caves when Jack hobbles down and kills himself. In the book, Ralph has to shoot him to kill him because
Hmm.
he's not the same, sympathetic character that he is in the show.
Yeah, I like that he killed himself in the show.
And hey, it's also set up because he tried to kill himself earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The two officially go into the caves where they find the ooze along the railing, as well as, dead animals that he ate. They find the cave-in spot and hear the outsider as they get closer. Claude mourns his brother's death. The outsider gives them safety tips for moving around because obviously they came all this way. They might as well meet and talk.
Mm-hmm.
The outsider wants to know where he went wrong because he's been fine up until now. Holly has her own questions that cannot be answered. The conversation is kind of similar in that case,
Mm-hmm.
but he's like children taste the best. That's a thing. Getting the energy from the person who is becoming, like the dead people of who is becoming, is the same. Uh, Claude comes in and faces the outsider with a shotgun, and he shoots the outsider, beginning a cave-in. Claude is injured in the cave-in. They find the outsider's corpse impaled on a piece of stalactite. Uh, while Ralph is leaving, he sees Derek and Ollie's faces, and he goes back and kind of calls the outsider's bluff on him.
Mm-hmm.
He then pins him to the floor and says that he'll bring scientists and tourists to come poke and prod at him, because obviously that's not what he would want.
Yeah.
The outsider tries to, taunt him by changing his face over and over, and then Ralph just smashes his head in with a rock.
Very,
Uh, I
very
would just,
anticlimactic, I might say.
it is worse in the book. So in the book, I'll just explain it to you. They find him in the cave with his bed and his lamp, but Holly
Like the
calls
Grinch.
him, yeah, Boy, that would be a much different series. If this would be a different series if it was the Grinch the whole time. God, that would make so much more sense. In the book, I'm just gonna move down on my list. In the book, Holly gets him by calling him a pedophile because he's like, yeah, you might feed from children like veal, but then you also, do other stuff on top of that. You go all,
Hmm.
Law and Order SVU on him. And he
Hmm.
gets very mad at that and goes after her. And then she just beats him in the head with a sock filled with like ball bearings, because that's what she did in the book in one of her own books.
Oh,
And
could
that's
have
how
been
he
butter.
dies. And that's how he dies in the book. And that's it. You're done. They leave the
Wow.
caves after that. So this is better, I would tell you that. Holly gets emotional about Andy because he came to see her and now he's dead. The whole team gets their story straight about what happened. Ralph stays at the cave entrance with the dead bodies. Uh, the DA is watching the surveillance video of Claude and Terry. Yoon calls and tells him what happened. Ralph gives his story about framing Jack Hoskins for everything that happened. And they go over those stories to make sure they all match.
I just want to make a point because I don't
Yeah.
know if you. Oh, are you at the end?
I've got a little bit, but you can do it now.
Um, I'll wait till you get done because I want to see
Okay.
if you know. But go ahead.
Uh, Holly mourns Andy's death, and we see that he has his own police funeral. Janine talks to Laurie, uh, similar to the end of the story, just to make sure the things are straight. Janine burns the chair the outsider had set up for her. For her, or did he sit in it? I cannot recall now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't
The,
remember.
the DA goes to talk to Laurie and says that he is reopening the case and that he is dropping the charges against Ralph. She embraces the girls. Holly packs up. Ralph said he would love to team up with her again. Holly explains that she believed in the outsider because outsiders know each other, can pick each other up. They hug. Ralph asks what else is out there in the world.
Hmm.
Uh, Claude, I guess, returns to Georgia. Is that it, or does he go back to his brother's house?
Mm, I think he goes back to. I don't know if it was made clear.
Yeah, I think it's Georgia. I think he
I
goes
think
back
it's
to
Georgia too
Georgia.
because he's riding with them. I'm
Yeah.
assuming they're going to Georgia.
Uh, Ralph tells Janine about seeing Derek and how he was told to let go. Janine says fat chance. That's very funny. They leave flowers on Derek's grave, and we see Frankie's headstone. And then, in a post-credit scene,
Okay, that's what I was
Holly.
about to ask. I did not see the post-credit scene. I just found that out, like literally just now.
Well, I knew it was there because I checked the time on the episode,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Oh wait, there's still a lot of show left. There's still like 10 minutes left."
I was reading through these summaries real quick, and I saw it at the very end, and I was like, "What?" So I just watched it there for a second. I did not know that was there.
Yeah. Uh, in a post-credit scene, Holly sees Jack in the bathroom mirror, and then sees that Terry is exonerated. Only there's a cut on her arm.
Oh no.
Uh, so I'm trying to find if there's anything different that I did not already tell you. Uh, the difference is that in the book, the DA does not tell Laurie. I guess he does, but we see the actual press conference he holds. There's a big celebration at the Anderson house, and Holly and Ralph call each other once in a while to talk through the events because they are still traumatized with everything that happened. So
Yeah,
that's
which
how
was
the book.
shown in that was shown in the mid-credit scene too, or post-credit scene.
Yeah, I guess so. But
Because when I watched it, Holly had seen Jack and she freaked out, and yeah.
anyway, so that is both the end of the book and the show, and they both end not great.
Yeah. So overall opinions though.
I think that there is. So the problem with the book, I'll go to the book first,
Okay.
is that it is really oddly paced. And it's one of those things. So, Stephen King is well known for his not doing outlines when he writes.
Mhm.
He just does, it's called like discovery writing, where he writes as he goes to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly
Dangerous.
obvious. Well, I would say it's incredibly obvious when you read this one because if there's some stuff that you know happens, it feels because it spends, like I told you, halfway through the book, you find like at the very end of the halfway, the very end of the first half of the book is the first time you get anything supernatural happening
Mhm.
to like illustrate the point. Like the first episode is like 79 pages. Is the
That's
entire
crazy.
first chunk of the book, yeah. Where he spends like a lot of details on the very beginning and a lot of speculation, and then kind of puts everything in what could be an even longer book in like the other half, and then it's over, and you're like, that's really weird.
Mhm.
I think you could make a good show. I mean, this is called season one, right? So are they wanting to do more?
Well, it's listed as a limited series. But with a post-credit scene like that, or a mini-series, limited series, mini-series, whatever, but with a post-credit scene like that, it opens you up to having a season 2 if they decide to do that. But as of right now, it's a limited or mini-series.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure, but
As far as I know, I mean, I don't think a season 2 has been announced yet.
announced, I think there's a good story if like you combine them, but the main problem, like it's good. It's a much different, I like the problem is I like in the book, I like how like regular like detective story it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ending happens and like the last third of the book and like the last kind of two episodes of the show, I'm like you have to change it somehow.
Yeah, so that was my biggest problem was that from the point where they killed Terry, I knew that they were going to have to do a lot to keep me invested into it because here I am thinking that Jason Bateman's going to be through the whole series, and now I have no idea where the story's going. So they were thriving off of the mystery of the outsider himself, which
Yeah.
means that they were going to have to execute on everything by the end of it. The problem is they didn't. Like he ended up being a shapeshifter, which we had already assumed.
Yeah, that's
But
pretty
we
obvious.
but outside of that, we only ever get interaction with him in the last episode, and it's for what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, in the book it's just as short, where it's like I think the way you go with it is you expand on the in the show at least, expand on the Claude is, identified by all of this camera footage. They
Hmm.
arrest him. So maybe you could expand it that way, but it's
It was just a letdown, I think, by the end of
yeah.
it. As far
And
as the mystery goes, the more interesting story in there was Jack's story.
yeah, which he almost and again, he's not anything that interesting or complex in the book, so I'm like I do not care about Jack.
Hmm.
And then you get to now and he's like, well, he's a better character, but I still kind of I knew where it was going, or I assumed I did.
Yeah, like
And I
I
got
just
most of it.
cared. I just cared more about what was happening to Jack than I cared at all about the outsider.
So yeah, I do not know how like to fix it, I guess, other than there's no good ending to it, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just we didn't really get a purpose. Is it literally just like an X-Files episode and he's just out killing people because he can or because he wants to?
And
or feels
X-Files
the need to.
episodes are good, right? Because they're 45 minutes long, not 10 hours.
Yeah, that I think that's the problem is that the the outsider himself feels like an X-Files or a supernatural villain that's just the mystery of it is spread out over 10-hour long episodes, which just doesn't work. Like we
And
had to have had some kind of something at the end, a
to tell
reason.
I think a good note to end on, no, maybe not end on because we can keep talking, but
Hmm.
there is a Buffy episode, going
Hmm.
back to that, that is an adaptation of Hansel and Gretel, where the difference is that they find like two children killed,
Hmm.
and the mystery is that nobody knows who they are, they're not related to anybody in the city who killed them, what like monster is out there, and it turns out the kids are the ones behind that one. You found that their dead bodies, the same kids, show up all over history and get like people riled up and angry at each other.
Yeah.
And that's a much better idea, and I think a way you could have gone with it, right? Where he only wants to like cause chaos in a town as well as feed off of that.
Well, yeah, that would have made more sense than than what we got because we didn't get anything out of it.
And when you could even tie that into Roanoke in the show, right? Because that
Hmm.
is all gone. Maybe he had something to do with it.
Hmm.
Anyway, the ending is the only thing I would say is really like bad about it.
Uh, does King have an obsession with shootouts in the woods? Because you might know better than me, but the last two things I've seen of his have been Doctor Sleep and this, and they both have shootouts in the woods, if I remember right.
They do. So, in the book, it's not in the woods because it's like a deserted Texas place. So it's more like out in like more like a more my OK Corral joke makes more sense in the book
Hmm.
because and they're in that like kind of like mesa area, like that deserted mesa area. But
Yeah.
yes, he likes that. I got reminded of Castle Rock because one of the main characters is a house person who sells houses, a realtor.
Hmm.
I was like, that's just a weird thing that's come out both times, right? Like, who puts
Yeah.
realtor twice in like two adaptations?
Maybe I don't know. I'd have to look into who was writing all of these things. Maybe there's somebody in there that's connected to all of them. Because it
Uh,
seems like they all seem to be a little bit more connected than the actual books or whatever they're based on.
well, I know, so I did look when I was doing some of it. The main writer has done a lot of stuff. Richard
Mm.
Price, he's done a lot of pretty good things. Let me look him up now. But one of the writers on the show is Dennis Lehane, who
Hmm.
did who wrote a book and one I've read called Shutter Island,
Oh yeah,
if you remember that.
the very Stephen King, not Stephen King movie.
Yeah, with Leo DiCaprio in it,
Yep.
which is also good but very slow. So oh, you would like him. He did The Night of.
Oh man, that show's so good. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Okay, you'll like that because it's a better mystery than what The Outsider is. Just minus the supernatural, but it's a way better like detective story.
The other big thing he wrote on was The Wire.
Oh, I haven't actually watched The Wire, but
I have not either, but it's very important and it's very like liked and well liked. So,
hmm
uh, overall, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good show that just does not have a great ending to it.
yeah, I mean, you know, it kept me engaged the whole time. Um, but it was whenever I was doing the reviews on it, my biggest point was that it was gonna have to execute on everything it was setting up, and the whole show was gonna rely on what they did in the ending, whether the show ends up being, to me a success or not. And they dropped the ball in the end. And while the show's probably a success because I know it got pretty good viewers, it
And yeah,
it just for me it just dropped the ball as a whole. Like, it could have been better if they could have, like, I don't know how to fix it, but they could have done something different that would have made it end a little bit better to, make the mystery worth it.
I would definitely say the show is better than the book.
Mm-hmm.
Even as I was watching it and taking all of those notes, I was like, yeah, this show, because it makes you care more. In the book, Ralph is just a detective.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have any amount of character really to him. Neither does like Janine or any of them. They don't really have any character to them. So adding anything is good. And so it's a pretty good show.
I will say Mendelsohn playing a detective was really good casting. And he did a lot, but he didn't really get to extend his range that much in this role, but it was good to see him not doing a typical villain like he normally does.
Yeah, that is true. He was pretty good in this. I really loved something that I just enjoyed, which was very funny, is all of the guys in the show all have like ranges of dad bod going on. And I thought that was so funny. Like you just see, Ralph, he's wearing, like a button down, and then you see like his pudgy stomach, and I was like, that's cool. Thanks for being honest with us.
Fun fact, I don't know if you knew this, but the actress that plays Holly,
Yes,
you know
I've
what
seen her.
you know what else she was in?
No, I just seen her and stuff.
Bad Times.
I do not think I've seen that. What is it?
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Oh, wait.
Bad Times at the El Royale.
Oh, is it her? Is it
Yep.
that lady? Oh my
Yep.
goodness, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, when she first showed up in the show, I had to look it up because I was pretty sure that was her, and it was the singer, if I
Yeah,
remember right.
yes, you're right. Oh, she was good in that movie, and she's good here too.
Yep. She's also in the movie Widows, which was a Steve McQueen movie
Yes.
with Liam Neeson and all those other guys about the widows had to take over the heist or whatever they were doing.
Yes, I remember seeing previews for that.
Yeah.
So,
So she's been doing some pretty good work.
yeah, she's no wonder I liked her so much because I've seen her in stuff I liked before. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that is all we have to say this time. Thank you so much for stopping by a very nice long discussion about The Outsider TV show.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed and everything.
Yep, stick around, be on the lookout for more shows and blog posts from us in the near future.
Alrighty. And we'll see you guys next time.